Thank you so much. All right, very good. Very good. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to see you. This is my first time in Japan, and I've had just such a lovely, warm welcome. You have a very beautiful, if a little bit small, city. No, it's not small at all. It's quite large, obviously. Okay, let me just share my slides here so we can get underway. Oh, good. And aha. Okay, so hello. Let's talk about Dora. How many of you are familiar with Dora? Eh. How many of you know the small child, Dora, who carries a backpack? Yes, a few of you know her as well. That's not the Dora we will talk about today, though. I'm sorry. Or you're welcome. I don't know which. Okay, so as Alex mentioned, the name of this presentation is Get Better at Getting Better. And this is really Dora's tagline. This is sort of the underlying philosophy of Dora. We want to help teams and individuals, just like yourself, go on a journey of continuous learning and continuous improvement. Now, some of you have not heard of Dora, so let's also clarify just exactly which Dora are we talking about. So the Dora that I lead is part of Google Cloud, but we are a research program. And our research, although it is part of Google Cloud, it is completely independent. We don't research specific products or technologies. Instead, we have research that looks into the capabilities, the conditions, and the practices that enable technology-driven teams to really improve their organization, improve what you're delivering to your customers, improve the business outcomes that your organization is striving for. And this is why we have that tagline, get better at getting better. Some of you that may have known Dora over the years may know Dora as an acronym, but Dora no longer stands for anything. It is just Dora. We have de-acronymed the word, if you will. So it's Dora, and we stand for nothing. Got it? All right. Yes. So with Dora, one of the things that we do every year is research. We go out into the world and we run a giant survey. We try to get answers about how you're doing work every single day from as many people as possible. In 2025, our survey was lucky to have nearly 5,000 respondents. These are technology practitioners, technology leaders, technology organizations from around the world participating in this survey and sharing information with us. We complement this survey data with qualitative data. Qualitative data is basically we have researchers that sit down and will do a one-on-one interview with an individual to understand how are they getting their work done? What sorts of things are they doing day to day? What outcomes are they seeing? And so forth. So we're very lucky to have all of this data. It really gives us a nice snapshot of how the industry is going. Now, I'm going to take you through some of the data, but I want you to read that very small print at the bottom of the slide. Okay, have you read that? Oh, no, it's too small. You can't read that. Please don't lie. No, it's okay. What this says is that last year, the survey ran from June to July of 2025. So the data that we're about to look at is nearly 1 year old. AI moves pretty fast. Data that's a year old might feel a little stale. I understand that. I think there are still really good lessons and data points that we can garner from this data, though. I also just want to take a moment to remind you that while the pace of AI is so fast, in many organizations, we aren't all on the cutting edge. We aren't keeping up with every change. It takes time to change an organization. So while some of this data is rather old, almost a year, if it were a child, it would almost be able to walk, but not quite. I think it's still valuable information that we can find and good insights we can take away. Okay. Each year after our survey, we summarize all of our findings and we put them into a report. Now, I have a favor to ask you. Whenever you attend a conference and a speaker puts a QR code on the slide, do me a favor and do that speaker a favor. Hold up your phone. It does not matter what you do with your phone, just hold it up. I feel like you might be following that QR code, and that gives me more confidence. So thank you. Arigato. We will test you later to see if you have mastered this skill. Okay? Very good. So you can download and read the report. It is quite a long report, but I also have some good news. On this page, you will find a Japanese version of the report. But with my good news, I have bad news as well. The Japanese version is a subset of the report. It's not the entire report. We had to shorten the amount of work that we translated. I apologize for that. But put the rest into Gemini and ask it to turn it into Japanese for you, and I'm sure it will be fine. Okay, so you've downloaded the report. Please don't read it now. It's 140 pages. Listen to me. Okay, so let's talk about what did we find. So we looked at AI adoption, and I want to start with some data about adoption and use of AI. Now, before I show you the next slide, I just want to address one criticism that Dora often receives. Dora collects most of its data through surveys. And sometimes people are suspect. They don't trust survey data. Why? Because people lie. Sometimes people are untruthful, or they suspect that they might be. Well, I have good news for you. This year in the Dora survey, we figured out how many people lied in the survey. And it was 10%. That's what this slide shows. 10% of the people lied on our survey. That's not actually what this slide shows. This slide asks the question, in your work recently, do you use AI professionally? 10% of the people said no. I don't believe them. I don't believe them. And certainly if we were to run this survey today, I would definitely not believe them. So I don't think in 2026, when we build our survey, I do not think we will ask this question, do you use AI at work? Instead, we might ask, do you use a computer at work? It would basically be the same answer. Yes, 100%. So we have most of the organizations, most of the teams that we talk to are using AI. But how's it going? How are they feeling? This is what we also want to understand. So we want to understand a little bit more than are you using it, but rather do you rely on AI? Using it is one thing, relying on it, needing it is another thing. And what we can see here is that most of our survey respondents rely on AI a moderate amount or more. And again, I believe that these numbers have changed over the last 9 or 10 months, probably even greater reliance. But as you're using it, how are you feeling? Do you feel more productive? We're going to get to that in a second. I got ahead of myself there. We also asked, how much are you interacting with AI? So we asked this question, think back to a recent working day. About how many hours in that day were you interacting with AI? When I look at this chart, there are two things that really stand out. The first is right here. We have a small number of people who said in a recent working day, I interacted with AI for 12 hours. If this is you, please close your computer, get up, go take a walk. The problem will be much clearer when you come back. Please stop. The other thing I think that is interesting on this slide is the median number of hours. So on average, the people that we talk to were interacting with AI 2 hours a day. Now, there are other research studies that ask software engineers to think about your recent working week. As a software engineer, how much time did you spend writing code? And many of those studies, think about that for yourself. What is that number? Many of those studies fall in the 10% to 30% of a working week I spend actually writing code. 2 hours is about 30% of an 8-hour working day. So probably, if you're a software engineer, you're interacting with AI while you're writing code. And of course, what we focus on in Dora is really the software development lifecycle. So we're talking to a lot of software engineers. So this stands to reason. And so how is it making you feel? Do you, as an individual, feel more productive? And this, again, is one of those survey questions. Do you feel more productive? Well, what does productive mean? I don't know. How do you feel? More productive? Great. Tell us that. And what we see here, though, is that a large majority feel like working with AI has increased my productivity, at least somewhat, with a small but real portion, about 5%, saying it's decreasing my productivity. That 5% or so is in that doom loop that Andrew mentioned yesterday. Do you remember the doom loop? I ask AI to give it to me. It gives me 85%. I ask it to fix that last 85%. Yeah, I mean, all the blue people are there too. It's true. It's true. We're all there. We're all in this loop. We're all in this loop. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit though. You feel more productive. What about the code base that you're working on? How is the code quality of the work that you're doing as you're using AI in your code base? And again, we see over 50% saying that AI is slightly improving my code base. But there are 10% who say, actually, the code base is a little bit worse off after using AI. And again, I don't know that I fall necessarily in one of these camps. Some days I fall in moderately improved camp. Some day I fall in, oh, it extremely worsened this code base. I probably should not have touched AI today. And maybe you feel that too, back and forth. So this is interesting because we see everyone using it, a large portion of people relying on it, people saying it's improving my productivity, people saying it's improving the code quality. And yet, our next question is a little bit of a conundrum or a mystery. Do you trust it? Do you trust the quality of the output of AI? And again, we see a good percentage, 46%, say they trust it somewhat. I'm team somewhat. Yeah, somewhat, I trust it. That's good. The people that I really want to sit down and have a sake with are the 11%. The 4% at the top that say they trust it a great deal, and the 7% at the bottom that said they trust it not at all. I think you're wrong, both of you. You should not trust it a great deal, but you have to trust it a little bit. You've got to work with it. And this is another really interesting thing. We start to get to a question of what is trust? What is trust and how do you build trust? And for me, trust is an example of when I have an interaction or I do a thing, I get the expected outcome. If I interact and it gives me what I expected over and over again, I build trust. It doesn't necessarily mean I like what it gave me, but I know that it's going to meet my expectations. And this is interesting because another thing that we see in our data is that as you use AI more, you trust it more. Oh, and as you trust it more, you use it more. So it's a nice virtuous cycle, right? And it's not necessarily that it's getting better, but it probably is. But in addition to it getting better, you're probably getting better with figuring out how to interact with it. And this, I think, is a call to action. If you're not using AI today, it's time to start because it's here to stay. And we have to start building up the muscles that it takes to work with AI. But if I were to take the entire report from 2025 and summarize it for you in 3 slides, these are the 3 slides. AI's primary role in software development is that of an amplifier. The greatest returns on investment come from a strategic focus on the underlying organizational system. Without this foundation, AI can create localized pockets of productivity that are often lost to downstream chaos. I'm going to back up here a second. I want to talk about this idea of an amplifier. An amplifier. We all know what an amplifier is. You turn it and the things get louder. Well, I want you to think of your team and your organization as a band. Now, maybe your band is a top-notch professional band. You go to stadiums and provide tours. You have to have an amplifier. When you turn up the volume, things sound great. Everyone is happy. The audience is cheering. Maybe that's your team. That's really cool. But maybe your band is, I don't know, the band that you started when you were a teenager and you hung out in the garage with your friends and you banged on a drum and you hit a guitar and you turn that up. Oh, we don't want that. We don't want that. So we have to be careful about how this amplification effect works. And then on this last thing here, if we think about losing productivity gains to downstream chaos, what might that look like? Well, in software development, oftentimes what happens is an engineer will sit down and write some code with or without AI. That code is really great, but it doesn't provide any value. Nobody really cares about that code until a user can interact with that code. And usually between here and there, there's a bunch of things that happen. One of those things that happens oftentimes is a code review process. Where as a team, we want to look at another engineer's code and say, it's good, or maybe make some changes to it. Did you think about this? And so forth. Well, the reality is, before AI, code review was a bottleneck. It slowed us down. We were writing code faster than we could review code. And also, who likes reviewing code? It's way more fun to write code than it is to review code. But now AI comes along. Now I can write 10 times faster and 10 times, 20 times, 100 times more code. This is great. I feel so productive. And I am. But I send that code down the line to be reviewed, and maybe our team hasn't changed our code review process at all. So now I'm sending so much more into the same bottleneck. That's what we mean when we say that these pockets of productivity can get lost to downstream chaos or downstream bottlenecks. Just because I wrote code faster doesn't mean I'm helping my users any faster, because it's getting caught up somewhere else in the system. That's a really important thing that we want to think about. And we're going to see some examples of that here in a minute. So this is sort of what we found when we went out and we looked. How are people using AI today? Well, with Dora, we want to understand deeper than that, beyond a surface level of understanding. We want to understand, how does this AI adoption relate to outcomes, things that you care about? Outcomes are things like team performance, product performance, organizational performance, software delivery performance. So as we're using more AI, how are these outcomes impacted? Well, in order to do that, the first thing we have to do is kind of build a model of how we see the world, how we represent the world. Back to another thing Andrew talked about yesterday, is models of how we think about the world. So we ask a bunch of questions on our survey, and with those questions, we build a model, and we understand how things relate to one another. So then we want to understand, how does AI relate to that? So the first job is to give you a score for your AI adoption. Is your AI adoption a 3 or a 5 or a 7? Well, we don't ask you that. Instead, we look at 3 different areas of questions that you've answered for us. Are you relying on AI? Do you trust AI? And do you have reflexive use of AI? Reflexive use is really, I have a new problem I want to solve. First thing I do is I reach for AI. Let's use AI to solve that. That's reflexive use, right? I grab for it right away. The higher you are across these three different factors, the higher your AI score is. So we take our model and we say, what if we took everyone's AI adoption score and amplified it? We turned it up. And then we run a bunch of simulations across the data to see how does everything else interact and what do the outcomes look like on the other side. Now, on the one hand, this is very good because as researchers, we're working with this model and we can try these simulations. On the other hand, it's not representative of your life because in an organization, a team is complex. We're essentially running an experiment where we change one factor. On your team, you cannot change just one thing and see what happens. It's impossible. Your team, your organization is too complex. So we can do it with our data, and I'm going to show you what we found. So here's what we found, and I'm going to walk you through how to read this chart because it's maybe a little bit difficult to read. Okay, so we're going to start over here on our vertical axis. These are the outcomes that we care about, things like individual effectiveness, organizational performance, and so forth. So we took AI and we turned it up. We ran a bunch of simulations. And then these dots represent how did it change? How did these outcomes change? And if by increasing AI, they changed not at all, the dot will be on this dashed line. This is 0. So if it got higher, it's over here on this side. If it got lower, it's back over here on this side. All right? So let's take a look at what we find. Individual effectiveness got higher. That's good. That's what we want. We feel more effective. We're doing more effective work. That's excellent. The next one, though, is software delivery instability. Instability is a measure of when you push something to production, how frequently do you pull it back? Whoops, didn't mean to do that. That was bad. Or I pushed it to production, something breaks, and I have to push forward a hot fix. That's not a stable software delivery. Instability is increasing. It's not what we want. That's sad. But there are other good signals here, right? Organizational performance, time spent doing valuable work, all of these, code quality, they're improving. Now, there are two things at the bottom that are also in red. We would prefer those things to be on the left. The reality is they're basically at 0. Those two things are burnout and friction. So friction is like how much friction, how much like slowdowns and like waste do you encounter as you're trying to do your job? So that actually stays at about 0 as you use more AI. And that actually is kind of unfortunate. Weren't we hoping that AI would eliminate all of the toil that we have? We're seeing it stay about the same. And then burnout is at about 0. And this last year makes sense to me. So when we ask these questions in June or July, imagine that you were feeling burnt out at work. What does burnout feel like? Well, I don't really care about this work. Kind of cynical. I don't like getting out of bed to go to the office. I'm not having fun with my colleagues. Like, that's burnout. If you're feeling that way and your boss or your team comes to you and says, oh, here's another tool, use this, it's not going to help. The AI can't fix that for you, right? So, but on the other hand, it didn't increase burnout, so yay, maybe that's okay. Andrew and I were talking about this before right now, though, and I think that this is likely to change this year. I have a concern that burnout is actually going to increase in 2026. And the biggest contributor to this, I think, is the agentic workflows. I can now do and look after an army of agents. An army of agents. It's okay, though, because I don't know about you, but I am very good at multitasking. Are you very good at multitasking? Neither am I. No human is good at multitasking. So if I have 10 agents that I'm looking after, I'm necessarily multitasking. I have to provide inputs to those agents. They're maybe asking me for things. With all of this multitasking, I am definitely worried that burnout is going to go up. I know this from my own experience. I can count on too many fingers the number of times I was late for dinner in the last few months because just one more prompt and this thing is going to be fixed. Just one more. One more. We're going to fix it. Yeah. So we have to be careful of this. Watch out for this on your own teams. Okay. So let's also take a look at something that's really interesting here. Let's look at the 2024 data. So if we've been looking at 2025, what changed from 2024 into 2025? Because maybe that shows us some of the path that we're on. So there were some things that when we looked at as you increase AI adoption, they got better last year. They're getting better this year. So that's good. Those things were individual effectiveness, code quality, team performance, and organizational performance. Some things were stubborn. In 2024, burnout and friction stayed at about 0. In 2025, burnout and friction stayed at about 0. So AI isn't fixing or hurting either one of these. And also in 2024, we saw software delivery instability also increasing. It continues to increase in 2025. So we'd rather those things took a turn, but alas, here we are. But there are some changes for the better. In 2024, when we asked individuals, how much time do you spend doing valuable work? As they used more AI, that time went down. In 2025, they feel like they're contributing more value, so it's turned to positive. Software delivery throughput, so how frequently are you deploying? How long does it take to get change into production? Last year, that went down. This year, it's going up. So we're fixing the throughput problem. We still have that outstanding issue with instability. And then product performance in 2024 was kind of neutral. It's moved to positive as well. All of this, to me, makes a lot of sense, though. And it's really kind of a reflection of what we call the J curve. And the J curve is what happens basically anytime you try to change or improve anything. It happens at the team level, it happens at the organizational level, it happens at the individual level. When I have more AI that I'm going to start using in my software delivery lifecycle, the first thing that happens is I feel really good. I'm more productive, I'm getting more things done, but maybe I'm just eating the low-hanging fruit. And then things start to get hard. And actually, productivity will usually dip. It will come down. And unfortunately, what happens here in this dip is many organizations, many teams, sometimes even individuals say, this is too hard, this isn't for me, it's not working, and we stop. But the reality is this is where we're building muscle and we're understanding how to interact with this new tool, with this new process. And we come out the other side much stronger, but you have to stick with it through that dip. And frankly, when it comes to AI adoption, I think there are very few, if any, teams that have made it through yet. I think as an industry, we're still in the very early phases of this J curve. And so this is why it's so important that we learn from each other and together with each other. So Dora, for a long time, many of you who do know Dora for the 4 keys, for the 4 software delivery performance metrics. And it is true that software delivery performance has always been what I'll call the center of gravity of Dora. It's how we measure a lot of things. How well can you and your team get software into production? But there's a couple of things that are different now about those 4 metrics. The first, as you can see here, I've said 4 metrics. You can see that I'm bad at math. There are 5 metrics. So over the past few years, we've introduced another metric into our software delivery performance. So there are now 5. We still measure throughput and stability, or throughput and instability, if you will. And one of the things that continues to hold true, though, is that throughput and stability typically are not trade-offs of one another. We are seeing some changes with AI, but in general, as throughput improves, so does software delivery stability. But we also know that trying to understand how well a team is doing by looking at these 4 or 5 numbers doesn't give me a full picture of what's happening. So we look beyond software delivery performance into these other outcomes, these other metrics as well: friction and burnout and team performance and product performance. And one of the things that we did then with all of this data that we have is we perform a cluster analysis across the data. So we understand from those 5,000 participants how they're doing across each one of these factors. And we put all of that data down on a plot. And when we look at the data, there are groups of answers that kind of cluster together. People in this group all tend to have similar answers, but they're different from people over here in this group. So when we run that cluster analysis, we actually identified 7 unique team profiles. And we have to give them names so that we can talk about them. So we give them names, things like pragmatic performers or the legacy bottleneck, constrained by process. The names are not as interesting as what they look like. So here's what they look like. Okay, this slide is ridiculous. You can't see anything that's on this slide. The graphs are really difficult to interpret. You shouldn't, I mean, thank you, Andrew, for taking a picture of it. It's not going to help you. Read about these in the report. But let's just take a look at 2 of them so we can kind of talk about what we see here. So we'll talk about one, constrained by process. So this is a team who, they seem like they're running on a treadmill. They're running, but they're not getting anywhere, right? They're working on stable systems, but their effort gets consumed by inefficient processes, leading to high burnout and low impact, right? There's a lot of process cruft, a lot of process that gets in our way and really slows us down. And this isn't helping us. We're not doing so well. We can compare that team to the harmonious high achievers. This is what we think really good team looks like. They're able to deliver software fast and safe. They do it in a sustainable way. Burnout is low. Productivity is good. This is probably the team you want to be. Team harmonious high achiever. Yes, this is my team. Or this is what my team aspires to be, right? So, but this brings us to a really interesting challenge. I mean, when we look at this, we see a ton of variance in how teams are performing. But remember, everyone is using AI. So why isn't everyone getting great performance results from using AI? Maybe it's not that you're using AI, but how you're using AI that really matters. This was the big question that we wanted to answer last year. And so to answer that question, we explored and then have since developed what we call the DORA AI capabilities model. These capabilities, when combined with increasing AI adoption, lead to better outcomes. And I'll take you through these capabilities really quickly. Not so quickly, translators. I won't go so quickly, I promise. I will walk you through these 7 capabilities very slowly so that it can easily be translated. Okay, so the first is a clear and communicated stance. In your organization, do you understand what AI is allowed? What AI is forbidden? What data can you give to AI? What can you use it for? And so forth. Without this clear and communicated stance, oftentimes here's what happened. People are using it anyway. We're going to use the AI. If you don't tell us how and when and where is appropriate, I'm going to be worried that I might get caught. I might get caught using the AI. So let's be very clear about this as an organization, because that fear of maybe getting caught or that fear that I'm doing something wrong, that can increase burnout, it increases friction, it impacts all kinds of well-being for the people on your team. Next up, we have 2 that have to do with data. A healthy data ecosystem and giving AI access to that internal data. Many of you are probably using the large frontier models, Gemini, or Gemini. Uh, these models are built on a lot of generic information, right? Information from around the web. They aren't built with your context in mind, with your customers, with your internal policies in mind. So when the LLMs have access to your data and your data is healthy, we have good data and good data systems inside that we give access to the AI. Now it can give you better results. A good example of this, maybe you have some specific compliance policies. When you write code, you have to follow these rules, or maybe only these language versions are allowed within our enterprise. We need to make sure that the AI knows that so that as it generates code, it follows those patterns. Next up, we have a couple of things that are kind of what I would even call traditional DORA capabilities, strong version control practices. You know, I've talked to a lot of people who have said, now that I'm using AI, I find myself checking in code to the repository much more frequently, because the AI might take a wrong turn. And I want to have the ability to roll back that change in version control. And working in smaller batches. This is one that I find particularly difficult with AI, because it's very easy to give AI a big task and ask it to go do that big task. And that also is an easy way to get into that doom loop. It solved 85%. Let me get it to solve the next 15%. Oh, now it's only solved 70%. Oh, but now it's back to 80, but it's the wrong 80 or a different 80. Like, this is really tough. But the AI, just like you and me, we actually do better with smaller tasks. So if you think about how can we take this work and break it down into smaller batches, that will certainly help improve our software delivery performance, because I can ship a smaller change and reason about it, and it's less likely to cause problems. So working in smaller batches is still a really powerful capability. Now, will this change over time? Maybe the AI will get better with larger batches. I don't know. I don't think I'll get better with larger batches. I still prefer working on small tasks, though. Next up, we have a user-centric focus. Remember, we aren't using AI because AI. We're using it to serve a user. We build, all of the software we build is for users. So how can we make sure that we're helping them? And then finally, quality internal platforms. And I'll just talk really briefly about two of those. User-centric focus, like I said, we build software for users. It's really important as a software engineer to understand, who am I building for? What are they trying to accomplish? And actually with AI, we're also starting to see a lot of software engineers think more like product managers. And maybe even some product managers thinking like software engineers, like building things, product managers are. So I think that this idea of who are we building for is so, so important. And we definitely see the best teams, the teams with the highest performance, are those teams that have a good, strong user-centric focus. Another one of these capabilities, I think, that actually we've been talking about here for the last day, platform engineering, or quality internal platforms. I find this really fascinating for two reasons. So first, a quality internal platform is a way that you can take an AI capability that one team has developed, and you can scale that across your entire organization. That's really good. But I think that AI and platform engineering are like on a course where they're coming together. The best platforms are those that we treat as products. Maybe you've heard this phrase, platform as a product. And one of the defining characteristics of a product is a product has customers. And so if we go back to the days before AI, and I was building a platform, who are my customers? The customers of the platform are other software engineers. That's great. I'm a software engineer. I just happen to be working on the platform. I'm building for people that are just like me. There are other software engineers that are trying to build software, ship software to production. I understand those challenges. I know how to build for them. But in this new world, we've introduced new customers to our platform. The next customer we've introduced is AI agents. So the agents have just become part of our platform, one of our customers. What is the right developer experience for our software engineers? What's the right agent experience for those AI agents building on our platform? This is a new thing I have to think about. The good news is that most of the things that you do to make life better for your developers also makes life better for your agents, right? So the developer experience and the agent experience are very closely related. There are certainly some things that are more developer focused and some that are more agent focused, but we're improving for both usually. But I would argue that there's a third customer now that we need to be concerned with as well. And that's what I'll call the builders. Because with AI, anyone can build. Someone on your finance team could go and build an entire application for managing payments. Would you take that application from that finance person and put it into production to manage payments for your organization? What if it was managing payroll? Would you be okay to ship that? But here's the thing. Why not? Why not? Maybe the best thing we can do as software engineers is invest in a platform that allows the business to ship whatever they want. So the best leverage that we can provide to our organization is enabling those builders in a way that makes it safe for them to build. How do we make it safe for them to build? Well, we build guardrails and feedback mechanisms into the platform. We make sure that they have access to good internal data. We teach them how to work in small batches. Maybe we make version control disappear for them, but it's happening in the background. I think that everything, if you just stop for a minute and say, finance just built an application. What scares me about putting it into production? Everything you put on that list is the roadmap for your platform. Go build that into the platform. Make it safe for them. You won't get there tomorrow, but it does give you a place to head. Okay, so we built this Dora AI capabilities model. I want to take just a moment to show you what it looks like in action. And in order to do that, I'm just going to swap over here. This is Dora.dev. This is the website where we publish everything here. We have an AI homepage here. I'm just going to click on AI. And then right down here, we have the model. So you can see, explore the model. Maybe I can make it just a little bit bigger. That's better. Okay, so here's how the model works. On the left-hand side, you have AI adoption. So we start with that. We say, okay, you're adopting AI, because everyone is. We want to make sure that your AI adoption turns into good outcomes. Those things on the right-hand side, team performance, code quality, individual effectiveness, and so forth. Well, how do you get there? It's through having those capabilities in the middle. So AI adoption combined with working in small batches drives these outcomes. That's how you think about this model. So coming back to our slides here for just 1 second, let's look at one of those 7 teams, the team that we called the legacy bottleneck. Now, one thing that you can see here, or maybe you can't, but I'll point it out to you, is that their product performance is quite low. So maybe this team decides, as a team, we're going to focus on product performance. We want to improve that. So they come to the AI capabilities model and they say, oh, look, product performance is one of those outcomes that AI adoption can help with. How do we get there? Well, if you follow these arrows backwards, it shows you which capabilities combined with AI adoption drive product performance, right? And so with each one of these, I just clicked on product performance because you might have a question, and you should. Nathen, what do you mean when you say product performance? And we show you how we assess. So what questions do we ask to measure product performance? That will give you insight into how we're measuring product performance. And then you can see that it's AI accessible internal data, working in small batches, and clear and communicated stance. Well, what does it mean to work in a small batch, and how do you assess that? So I've clicked on working in small batches. I can see how I've assessed that, and I can learn more about it. So I can come over here and I can learn, what does it mean to work in small batches? What are some of the pitfalls that we might run into? Some of the ways to reduce the size of our batches, things along those lines. So this is how you can take the AI capabilities model and put it into practice. This can help you identify, where should we make our next investment in improving? Remember, our job is to get better at getting better. And to that end, again, it's as if Andrew and I had coordinated. We did not. But you may remember this quote from yesterday: a bad system will beat a good person every time. Remember, AI acts as an amplifier. If you have a bad system with a lot of friction, a painful day for a developer, and you throw a bunch of AI into that system, that painful day is going to hurt more. It's going to be harder. It's going to be more difficult to get valuable work done. On the other hand, if you have a really good system and you throw some AI into it, that system can improve. So let's think about, how do I improve my own system? And when it comes to AI, there's really kind of a couple of approaches that you might think about. The first one I'll talk about is augmenting. How do I improve the way that a system or a process currently works? And for this, I like to think of augmenting as Kaizen. You know Kaizen? Continuous improvement. We're going to make a small, iterative improvement. So maybe we look at what is happening across our software development lifecycle, and where can we inject some AI to help improve? What small changes can I make that will make the overall system better? And this is a really good place to start. And I've been a big proponent of this for a long time. Kaizen, make small changes, you're going to get great outcomes. But I have to tell you, I've been questioning myself lately. AI is changing so fast and unlocking so many capabilities. I do worry that we may not be able to iterate, small step our way into everything that AI has to offer us. So I think in addition to augmenting, we also have to think about kaikaku, radical change, and really evolving, designing for what AI makes possible. And this may include throwing out some things that we've done in the past to explore the new way that we can do them with AI. So I think this is both scary and exciting. But I think in either case, it's important to remember that the AI tools of today, right now, April 15th, this is as bad as they will ever be. The tools are only going to get better from here. The way that you interact with the tools is only going to improve from here. So it is really important that while we may be fully redesigning things, we have to be ready, even if we completely evolve them, we have to be ready to continually augment them. So we're always improving, always iterating. And I want to look at one of those things that we all hold near and dear. This is something that nearly every software team does: code reviews. And I want to take a look at code reviews in both a Kaizen and a Kaikaku lens. So let's continuously improve. We know that code review is a bottleneck. And we know that if we use AI to write more code, that bottleneck, we're going to feel it even more. If I could go back in time, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, before your team started using AI, the advice that I would give to you is, do not use AI to write code. Start by using AI to review code. Because the reality is two things. One, your code review process is a bottleneck. Fix that bottleneck. Two, You don't trust AI. I'm not saying replace your human code review, but augment it with AI. This will help you start to understand what can the AI find in a code review. You, by doing this, are going to build trust in the expectations of the AI. If you started with code review instead of starting with code generation, you would probably see some improvements in flow, and you would start to build muscles on how to interact with AI. You would get better at working with the AI. As you did that, then you could move back to start generating code. And frankly, generating code has a higher risk than reviewing code. So start with something low risk. Okay, but I didn't tell you that 2 years ago. So you didn't listen to me then. So you've used AI to generate a whole lot more code. And code review, still hard and still slow. It's not too late. Put some AI into that code review process. Again, don't replace your human code reviews, but AI gets the first cut at the code review. This is wonderful because the AI is fast, it's always available, it solves a bunch of problems that you have with code review. And I can't tell you the number of times that AI has found issues with my code that I missed and that I would have felt really bad about asking a colleague to find for me. But it's also found issues that I know no colleague would have spotted. So it can be really powerful. And this is a good way to use AI to augment what you're doing today, that Kaizen, that small step, continuous improvement. But what about looking at code reviews from a Kaikaku lens? Radical change. Here's something radical. Let's stop doing code reviews. Get rid of them altogether. Does that make you uncomfortable? It might. To which I might ask, like, why do we do code reviews? What's the purpose of a code review? And here's one of the challenges. When I ask this question, I often hear, well, it's to catch bugs. It's for knowledge sharing. It's for security practices. It's for making sure that we're following good architectural practices. It's for a teaching moment so a junior engineer can learn from a senior engineer. That's too many things for one step in our process to do. We're overloading the job of code reviews. We also cannot keep up with a human reviewing everything that an AI is generating. It's generating code too fast and too much code. So what might we do instead? What might we do instead of code reviews? Well, we want to catch bugs. Let's be honest. Humans didn't catch every bug. We still shipped bugs. So we have to be okay that bugs are going to make it into our production servers, into our production systems. We need to make sure we have the right observability in place. And then we need to pull back that observability sooner. Oftentimes we think about automated testing. Do I have good feedback mechanisms, good automated testing? And maybe every bit of capacity that your team is going to invest in improving code reviews, maybe it's better spent improving your testing capabilities. Because then I can get that automated feedback and I can get that consistently over and over again. And I'm not waiting for another human. And so maybe it is time that we really rethink code reviews. Throw them out. Let's stop doing them. Let's solve for what they're solving for in other parts of our practice, in other parts of our technology stack, in other parts of how we work. But here's the thing about Kaizen, continuous improvement, and Kaikaku, radical change. I think one of the best ways to get to radical change, to Kaikaku, is through Kaizen. Small steps towards that radical change. So let's set eliminating code reviews as our radical change. And let's talk about the small steps we need to take to get there. And I think we can do that. Now, I use code reviews here as an example. Maybe that resonates, but maybe there's something else on your team, in your process, that is really painful, that AI made worse. Go eliminate that thing. Think about this for yourself. Okay, I'm coming up on time, so I have a few closing thoughts here. The first is that in addition to the 2025 report, we also published recently an AI capabilities model report. This is your test from earlier. Does everyone remember what I said to do? All right, yes, I'm seeing some phones come up. Very good, very good. Okay, so you can download the AI capabilities model report right here off of Dora.dev. And then the next thing I want to warn you about. This is a final thought here. You know, I am very proud of the research that Dora does. And I'm very thankful that you read that research and you think about it and you try to use that research in your own teams. And I've talked to many of you here that are doing just that. But I want to remind you, don't trust our research. Don't trust it. Why? Well, we go out and we research the world. We try to get as much insight from as many people as possible. And then we talk about and report on things that we're seeing, patterns that we find in that data. The reality is, you don't work for the world. You work in your organization. And even in your organization, you work on a team delivering for a specific customer, specific value. So you can't look at the world and say, the world's got it right, we've got to do it like the world. Because actually, no one does things exactly like how we report them. It just doesn't work out mathematically. So I encourage you to take our findings and contextualize them. Think about them within the context of your team, of your users, of your organization. Use our findings as the hypothesis for your next experiment. What are we going to try next? I don't know, but here's some ideas that Dora has found. Maybe we could try something like that here. Maybe improving our code reviews is going to help us. Maybe investing in our platform is going to help us. Let's try that out. And as you try that out, I also want to hear from you, because the reality is also that no one can go on this journey alone. So first, look around the room. You're here with your community, with your people. We are the ones that are going to go change all of these organizations. But at the same time, I would like to invite you to hold up your phone again. Oh, no. What I want to invite you to do, you can hold up your phone. Of course, there is a QR code. What I want to invite you to do is to join the Dora community of practice. This is an online community that's open to everyone. Today, we have thousands of practitioners and researchers and leaders, just like yourselves, trying to take these insights and put them into practice. And we're sharing from and learning from each other. We have a mailing list. We get together for virtual meetings quite often. And so I encourage you to join that. And with that, I want to say, arigato. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Nathen. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job. I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure that many of you do, which is why we are going to have an interview as our last session of the day. So please stay around for that, and that would be a great opportunity for all of us to do some Q&A. And of course, Nathen's going to be here all day too, so feel free to stop by, ask some questions, and just chat with us, chat with everyone during lunch. But for now, the bentos have arrived. So everyone, let's enjoy some lunch, and thank you again, Nathen.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.